We'll ask the Secretary to read the measure.
The Secretary will read the title of the measure without prejudice to inserting into the records the whole text.
An act institutionalizing the Schools of Living Traditions, SLT, amending Republic Act Number 10066 or the National Cultural Heritage Act of 2009 as amended and appropriating funds therefore.
I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Lauren Legarda, the chairperson of the Committee on Culture and the Arts. So move, Mr. President.
Senator Lauren Legarda is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, our nation's soul is intricately woven through songs, stories, designs, and crafts. Across our archipelago, you can hear the rhythmic melodies of the hudhud chants of the Ifugao, the enchanting kulintang of the Maguindanao, and witness the delicate craftsmanship of piña weaving in Aklan. Each rhythm, each pattern carries the living memory of our ancestors, an enduring expression of our identity, our resilience, and our collective spirit. Today, I have the honor of sponsoring a measure that seeks to ensure these vibrant traditions do not merely survive, but thrive and evolve, an act institutionalizing the Schools of Living Traditions, SLT, amending Republic Act Number 10066 or the National Cultural Heritage Act of 2009, as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. In 2021, the Schools of Living Traditions was inscribed in the UNESCO Register of Good Safeguarding Practices, recognizing its community-driven approach to safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. The Philippines is home to 222 indigenous cultural communities comprising 124 major groups and 98 subgroups representing more than 14 million indigenous peoples across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Their rituals, chants, and craftsmanship are not merely cultural practices and creative expressions. They are living repositories of wisdom, values, and identity. Heritage systems passed from one generation to the next, sustaining our collective sense of nationhood. Many of these traditions have already gained global acclaim. The hudhud chants of the Ifugao and the Darangan epic of the Meranao have been inscribed by UNESCO into the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. On December 6, 2023, Aklan's piña handloom weaving was also inscribed in the same prestigious list. These honors affirm that our cultural treasures are alive, nurtured by the hands, hearts, and minds of our communities. Yet, Mr. President, despite these remarkable achievements, the continuity of many living traditions remains fragile. Rapid modernization, the decline of intergenerational learning, limited institutional support for community-based education, and the absence of a permanent structure threaten their survival. Since the 1990s, we have steadfastly supported the National Commission for Culture and the Arts and its pioneering work through the Schools of Living Traditions. However, these initiatives have primarily operated through grants without a stable, long-term budgetary framework. This bill seeks to fill that critical gap. By institutionalizing the SLTs under the NCCA and establishing a dedicated center for each, we will create a sustainable platform for research, training, and coordination. This will empower cultural communities to remain the foremost custodians of their heritage, ensuring that their traditions are safeguarded, adapted, and transmitted with integrity and pride. This measure recognizes that our living traditions are not only cultural measures, but also sources of livelihood and innovation. Through SLTs, traditional crafts and practices can be integrated into the creative economy and tourism industries, linking heritage to inclusive growth. In this way, our ancestral wisdom becomes a foundation for sustainable development, where cultural authenticity drives creativity and prosperity. Mr. President, I earnestly urge for the swift passage of this measure. Let us ensure that progress and tradition walk hand in hand, guiding our nation towards a future that is not only modern and dynamic, but also deeply rooted in the strength of our cultural identity. May the flame of our living traditions continue to illuminate our nation's journey, reminding us that our heritage is not a relic of the past, but a living legacy that shapes our tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Senator Jingo Estrada would also like to be made a co-sponsor, and he requests his speech to be inserted into the records. This is for Senate Bill number 1507. There's no, sorry, Mr. President, we didn't hear the.
So inserted into the records. Senator Robin Padilla is raising his hand.
Oh, yes. Sponsor ka po? May we recognize Senator Robin Hood Padilla to co-sponsor the measure.
Senator Robin Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Nais ko lamang pong batiin ang aming iniidolo, Senator Loren Legarda, sapagkat sa matagal na panahon po na tayo po ay umiikot sa buong Pilipinas at pinupuntahan po ang ating mga cultural minorities. Siya po talaga ang kilala ng mga katutubo natin at siya po talaga ang kanilang tinatawag nilang heroine. Ako po ay saludo po sa inyong panukala na ito sapagkat naniniwala po ako na hanggat ang mga Pilipino ay hindi po kinikilala ang kayamanan na ibinibigay sa atin ng mga katutubo, hindi po tayo uunlad. At ito pong pagkilala sa kanilang kultura, sa kanilang sining, sa kanilang arts, tradisyon, ay mananatili po tayong ligaw. Dahil pagka tiningnan po natin ang lahat ng mga progresibong bansa, sabihin na po natin Australia, Amerika, sabihin na po natin sa Europe, kapag binanggit po ang mga bansa na yan, kinikilala po nila ang kanilang mga katutubo at ang respeto po nila ay napakataas, lalong-lalo na po sa kanilang mga ari-arian, lalong-lalo na po sa kanilang matatawag nating experience sa pamamahala. Kaya sana po, mga mahal kong kasama dito sa bulwagan na ito, suportahan po natin ito dahil tandaan po natin hanggat ang ating mga katutubo ay nasa pangil ng paghihirap at pang-aabuso natin mismong mga kultural na Pilipino, hindi po tayo uunlad. Yakapin po natin ang kanilang pagmamahal sa bayan na ito, katulad ng kanilang pagmamahal sa kanilang kapwa. Dahil yan po ang nakakalimutan natin, pagmamahal natin sa kapwa Pilipino. Kaya sana po, mga mahal kong kababayan, yakapin po natin ang panukala na ito. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President, to our distinguished colleague, Senator Robin Hood Padilla. With that, Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of the measure to allow our colleagues to study the measure further.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is suspended.
While we are awaiting several bills, Your Honor, to be filed with the bills and index and subsequently be read for official business, may we ask for a minute suspension, Mr. President? Session suspended, Mr.
What, a
President.
Senate minute or real
One Senate
suspension?
minute, Mr. President.
1 Senate minute. Session is suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move for the second additional reference of business.
Second additional reference of business, the Secretary will proceed.
Second additional reference of business committee reports. Committee report number 12, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance on Senate number 1508 with Senators Ontiveros, Cayetano P. Estrada, and Ejercito as authors. An act authorizing the Department of Health to set and approve the bed capacity and service capability of all DOH hospitals. Recommending approval in substitution of Senate number 689, 780, 962, and 1428. Sponsor, Senator Ontiveros.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 13, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Health and Demography, Ways and Means, and Finance on Senate number 1509 with Senators Villar M., Lapid, Estrada, Go, Legarda, Tulfo E., Zubiri, Ontiveros, Tulfo R., and Villanueva as authors. An act establishing the Philippine Geriatric Center, defining its purposes and objectives and appropriating funds therefore. Recommending approval in substitution of Senate numbers 256, 319, 383, 411, 461, 511, 596, 1197, 1302, and 1320. Sponsor, Senator Ontiveros.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 14, submitted jointly by the Committees on Health and Demography, Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development, and Finance on Senate number 1510 with Senators Tulfo R. and Ontiveros as authors. An act establishing a National Health Service Outreach Program for senior citizens and indigent persons with functional disabilities, providing for interagency and local government coordination and providing funds therefore. Recommending approval in substitution of Senate number 712 and 1417. Sponsor, Senator Ontiveros.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 15, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Health and Demography, Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development, and Finance on Senate number 1511 with Senators Ontiveros, Estrada, Tulfo E. and as authors. An act strengthening the protection of patients against hospital detention on grounds of non-payment of hospital bills or medical expenses and providing stiffer penalties for violations thereof. Amending for the purpose RA 9439, an act prohibiting the detention of patients in hospitals and medical clinics on grounds of non-payment of hospital bills or medical expenses. Recommending approval in substitution of Senate numbers 217 and 960. Sponsors, Senator Ontiveros and Tulfo E.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 16, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Justice and Human Rights, Civil Service, Government Reorganization, and Professional Regulation, and Finance on Senate number 1512 with Senator Soto III, Tulfo E., Ontiveros, and Pangilinan as authors. An act creating an independent People's Commission to investigate anomalies in all government infrastructure projects, defining its powers and functions, appropriating funds therefore, and for other purposes. Recommending approval in substitution of Senate number 1215. Sponsor, Senator Pangilinan.
Approved on second reading. No, I mean to the calendar for ordinary business.
Yes. Mr. President, I move that we transfer from the calendar of ordinary business to special orders Senate Bill number 1509 under Committee Report number 13. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. So transferred.
I move that we ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure, Mr. President.
The Secretary is directed to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to inserting into the records the whole text thereof.
An act establishing the Philippine Geriatric Center, defining its purposes and objectives, and appropriating funds therefore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to recognize the sponsor, no less than our hardworking Deputy Majority Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros, to sponsor the measure.
Senator Risa Ontiveros is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. I rise to sponsor a measure that seeks to establish a tertiary specialty hospital for geriatric care under the direct control and supervision of the Department of Health, the Philippine Geriatric Center. Together with Senators Mark Villar, Lito Lapid, Jinggoy Estrada, Bongo, Loren Legarda, Erwin Tulfo, and Majority Leader Mig Zubiri, we recognize the urgent need to respond to the healthcare challenges of our senior citizens and the rapidly aging population of our country. While we celebrate increased longevity as a sign of progress in health and wellness, hindi po natin maikakailang habang humahaba ang buhay, posibleng dumarami rin ang ating mga karamdaman. High blood, diabetes, arthritis, dementia at iba pa. many of our elders suffer quietly, often without access to proper care or support. Sa kasalukuyan, napakakaunti pa lang ng geriatricians, mga doktor na espesyalista sa pangangalaga ng nakatatanda. Wala ring sentro at espesyalistang ospital at programa na nakatuon sa kanila. That is why we need the Philippine Geriatric Center, a specialized hospital that will deliver affordable, quality, people-centered hospital care for senior citizens, promote integrated nationwide geriatric health services in partnership with DOH, LGUs, and other stakeholders, advance research on aging-related diseases, and translate findings into policy and specialized care. Provide consultancy and technical guidance to set standards in geriatric care across healthcare and residential facilities. Support the creation and maintenance of senior citizens' wards in government hospitals, and provide education and training in geriatric care for healthcare professionals, social workers, and community volunteers. Mr. President, this measure is not just about healthcare. It is about honoring our elders, ang ating lolo't lola who raised us, guided us, and kept our families close. It is about ensuring that they live longer, healthier lives with dignity and access to care. Through this bill, we aspire to celebrate old age with care. Para sa ating mga nakatatanda, ang Philippine Geriatric Center is more than a hospital. Ito ay haligi ng isang lipunang tunay na mapagkalinga. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President. Mabuhay ang ating mga senior citizens.
Thank you, Senator Tiberos, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, one of the happy bills that our good sponsor always passes. I'm sure this will be to the benefit of so many of our elderly members of the community. We'd like to also recognize to co-sponsor the measure, Senator Erwin Tulfo, Mr. President.
Senator Erwin Tulfo is recognized to co-sponsor the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise today to co-sponsor a measure that not only speaks of policy but of the heart, an act establishing the Philippine Geriatric Center. How a nation treats its elderly reflects its moral strength. Our senior citizens deserve more than our gratitude. They deserve a health system that recognizes their unique needs and treats them with dignity. Ang mga bata po dito sa ating bayan, Ginoong Pangulo, may pediatrics hospital tulad po ng National Children's Hospital, ang Philippine Children's Medical Center. Ang mga kababaihan po may obstetrics at gynecology clinics at maternity centers. Nararapat din ang ating mga nakatatanda may geriatric center. Their bodies and minds change in ways that require special attention. And they deserve doctors trained to understand complexities of aging, from chronic diseases to cognitive and physical decline. The establishment of the Philippine Geriatric Center, Mr. President, goes beyond merely designating geriatric wards or units in hospitals. It envisions a national center of excellence, a premier institution for elder health that will, number one, provide specialized and integrated medical care. 2, train future geriatric specialists, nurses, and caregivers. 3, advance research on aging and age-related diseases. And 4, serve as a hub for policymaking and community outreach programs for the elderly. Mr. President, we have seen it all. Ang mga lolo't lola na nakapila ng mahaba sa ospital, hawak po ang reseta, umaasang matitignan ng espesyalista. Some endure pain in silence. Others give up treatment altogether because of cost, distance, or lack of specialists who truly understand the conditions. This measure seeks to change that story by bringing the right care closer to them. That is why we filed Senate Bill number 596 to bring medical care closer to every Filipino elderly. Our goal is to strengthen our healthcare system for the elderly by making it affordable, accessible, and sustainable. Opo, malaking tulong po ang senior discount sa mga gamot at pangunahing bilihin. Ngunit higit pa po roon, kailangan po nila ng mga pasilidad na akba sa kanilang kalagayang pangkalusugan. According to the Commission on Population and Development, by 2030, the Philippines will officially become an aging population. Mr. President, 2025 na po tayo, 5 taon na lamang po yun. And let's be honest, Mr. President, lahat po tayo ay tatanda. Kung susumahin, halos kalahati nga ata ng miyembro ng ating kapulungan ay senior na. So this measure is not just forward-looking, it's personally relevant. Malapit po sa aking puso ang mga nakatatanda. They once carried the nation on their shoulders. Sila ang nagkalinga, nagsumikap, at nag-aruga. Now it is our turn to carry them with respect and with love. Mr. President, this measure is an investment not just in health, but in humanity. I proudly co-sponsor this measure and urge my colleagues to support the same. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo, at sa ating mga mahal na kasama. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tulfo. Majority Leader.
May we recognize Senator Robin Hood Padilla.
Senator Robin Hood Padilla is recognized.
Ginoong Pangulo, mga mahal kong kasama sa Senado, tumatayo po ako upang ipahayag ang aking pagnanais na maging co-sponsor ng panukalang pagtatatag ng Philippine Geriatric Center o Senate Bill No. 1509 sa ilalim ng Committee Report No. 13 na magiging isang tertiary specialty hospital para sa pangangalaga ng ating mga nakatatandang kababayan, mga senior citizens. Alam naman po lang lahat at hindi po ako naglihim ng aking mahal na ina ay sa kasalukuyang po ay may demensya at pinangangalagaan po ng 3 caregivers at 7 mga anak. Anumang panukala na nagbabalik ng dignidad sa ating mga nakatatanda, susuportahan ko po ito. Sila ang mga ugat ng ating lipunan, mga ilaw ng ating tahanan, ngunit madalas silang hindi napapansin. Unang napapabayaan at huling nabibigyan ng espesyal na pangangalaga. Ngayong 20th Congress, naghain din po ako ng panukala ang Senate Bill No. 20 ukol sa pagkakatatag ng nursing homes for senior citizens. Kaya malapit po talaga ang aking damdamin sa ating mga magulang, lolo at lola. Pinupuri ko po si Senator Risa Ontiveros at ako'y nagpapasalamat din po kay Senator Erwin Tulfo sa kanilang malasakit at inisyatiba sa ilalim ng panukalang ito. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Senator Robin Hood Padilla. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I too have a sponsorship speech to make. I also filed the measure. I'd just like to insert it for the records, or insert it into the records rather, to hasten the proceedings, Your Honor.
So inserted.
And also Senators Christopher Bongo, Senator Mark Villar, and Senator Jingo Estrada would like to also have their speeches inserted into the records.
Take, well noted and inserted the records.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I manifest also that a related measure, Senate Bill number 1500, authored by Senator Camille Villar, which covers the same subject matter as the measure presently under consideration, has been subsequently filed. At the proper time, a motion shall be made for its inclusion into Committee Report number 13 upon its referral to the committee.
Yes,
So
I will
for
take note of that.
manifestation. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, to allow our colleagues to study the measure further, I move that we suspend the consideration of the measure.
Is there objection? There being none, motion is approved.
I move, Mr. President, to transfer from the calendar of ordinary business to special order Senate Bill number 1508 under Committee Report number 12. I so move.
Is there objection? There being none, so transferred.
May we request the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Objection, hearing none, motion is approved. Consideration of Senate Bill number 1508 is now in order. The Secretary is directed to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to inserting into the record the whole text thereof.
An act authorizing the Department of Health to set and approve the bed capacity and service capability of all DOH hospitals.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, no other than our distinguished Deputy Majority Floor Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros, to sponsor the measure.
Our Deputy Majority Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros, is recognized.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. I rise today to sponsor a measure that is both urgent and transformative, the DOH Hospital Bed Capacity and Service Capability Rationalization Act. This bill addresses the long-standing challenges of our DOH hospitals and the regulatory bottlenecks that prevent them from meeting the needs of our people. The substitute bill, authored by this representation, together with Senators Pia Cayetano and Jinggoy Estrada, streamlines the approval process for increasing authorized bed capacities and hospital service capabilities. It also requires the DOH to regularly update and implement the Philippine Health Facility Development Plan, PHFDP, a living blueprint to guide modernization, optimize capital investments, and upgrade hospital facilities and equipment. The goal is simple and urgent: responsive, efficient, and quality hospital health care aligned with the actual needs of our population. Right now, DOH hospitals are under extreme strain. As of June 2025, mayroon lamang ang gobyerno na 60,395 hospital beds. At sa parehong taon, may naitalang 114,251 bed capacity gaps ang DOH based on its target of 2.7 beds per 1,000 population. The estimated bed increase for this year is 29,000. Increase for this year is 29,334. At inaasahang sa 2040, ang ating bed capacity gap, kapag hindi natugunan at naaksyonan, ay tataas mula 114,251 to 188,943 beds. And with a current occupancy rate of 136%, far above the recommended 80 to 85%, our government hospitals are naturally overcrowded, understaffed, and under-resourced. The consequences are clear: longer waiting times, delayed treatments, and limited emergency response capacity. As apex referral hospitals under the Universal Healthcare Act, these facilities are central to our healthcare provider networks. Yet, regulatory requirements, especially the need for legislation to increase capacity, delay critical expansions, sometimes for 21 months or even up to 3 years, leaving hospitals unable to meet the rising demand of our kababayan. Sa simpleng salita, ang kasalukuyang proseso ay mabagal at nakakasagabal sa pangangailangan ng ating mga ospital. Ang sakit, trauma, at emergency ay hindi naghihintay. Hindi pwede na ang batas ay laging nahuhuli sa pangangailangan para sa hospitalisasyon, para sa buhay at kalusugan. With the passage of this bill, we can fast-track modernization, align resources with actual demand, and strengthen compliance with universal health care. The PHFDP becomes a living guide, ensuring hospitals can respond efficiently to both everyday healthcare needs and emergencies. Mr. President, dear colleagues, this is not just about beds or equipment. It is about every Filipino, regardless of income, receiving timely, quality hospital care when it matters most. It is about a government that responds, adapts, and invests strategically in the health of its people. I appeal to my colleagues to support this measure, not just as a legislative priority, but as a moral imperative. para sa mas maayos, mas mabilis, at mas accessible na hospital care at serbisyo sa bawat Pilipino. Marami pong salamat, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Tiveros. Majority Leader.
We recognize Senator Erwin Tulfo, and after which Senator Robin Hood Padilla.
Senator Erwin Tulfo is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, I would like to manifest my support for Senate Bill number 1508. First of all, I would like to thank Senator Rizon Tiveros for sponsoring this important measure. Yehey, palakpakan po tayo nung inanunsyo po ng Pangulo. Zero billing nung pong last SONA. Napakaganda pong pakinggan, wala kang babayaran. Provided yan ay DOH hospital. Ibig pong sabihin, wala kang babayaran. Pag yung ospital na yan ay sa gobyerno, pinapatakbo ng Department of Health. Pero may problema po, Ginoong Pangulo. Kulang na kulang po ang mga kama sa mga DOH hospital. Pag may pasyente, isang mahirap po na pasyente magtutungo sa ospital, ang sasabihin, wait. Mag-aantay po. Anong sakit? Tatanungin muna. I'll give you an example. A niece of a friend of mine went to check in at the National Children's Hospital last week. Positive po sa dengue. Tinignan ho, hindi pa masyado malala, balik na lang ho kayo. May dengue. Bakit po? Puno po kami. That was the reason. Mr. President, I think it's high time that we really look into this problem. Yung sinasabi pong zero billing po sa government hospitals ay nagiging wala pong saysay because of the fact na ang lahat po, kahit ngayon pong oras na ito, magtungo ka sa isang government hospital, wala pong kama. Parang ika nga may kasabihang paasa. So pagpunta mo, napipilitan po yung mga mahirap nating kababayan sasabihin walang kama. E nagmamadali po. This is the reason why, Mr. President, na karamihan sa mga kababayan natin na cannot afford ay pupunta po sa mga private hospitals tulad ng St. Luke's, Capital Medical Center, Cardinal Santos at iba pa. And they just worry about the payment after. Andiyan po pipila. Magtsatsaga pong pipila sa Department of Health para makakuha ng MAIP. Pipila pong maghapon magdamag sa DSWD para makakuha ng AIX. Pipila po sa opisina dyan sa labas po ng Senado para makakuha po ng guarantee letter sa ating mga mambabatas o sa Kongreso. Wala pong pambayad. Ang ibig ko pong sabihin, Mr. President, kulang na kulang po ang ating mga kama sa lahat po ng government hospitals. Therefore, Mr. President, it is high time that we grant the Department of Health the authority to adjust and approve the authorized bed capacities of our hospitals. The growing demand for health services calls for a more responsive and flexible system that can promptly address the needs of our Filipino people. Ito pong panukalang batas na ito ay para po sa kalusugan ng bawat Pilipino. Wala pong maiiwan, walang mapapabayaan. At the proper time, Mr. President, I will also be asking questions during the plenary deliberations, not to delay, but to seek clarifications. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Magandang hapon po sa lahat.
Maraming salamat, Senator Erwin Tulfo. Senator Robin Hood Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Buong puso ko pong pinapahayag ang aking pagnanais na i-co-sponsor ang panukalang batas, Senate Bill number 1508, sa ilalim po ng Committee Report number 12, na nagbibigay sa Department of Health ng kapangyarihang magtakda at mag-aproba ng bed capacity at service capability ng ating mga DOH hospitals. Alam niyo po, sa loob po ng 4 na taong ko dito sa Senado, ako po ay nag-ukol ng pansin sa akin sa MAIP upang makatulong po sa ating mga kababayan. Sa realidad, ang karamdaman po kasi at sakuna ay parang unus. Dumarating ng walang abiso. At habang naghihintay ang mga ospital ng bagong batas para makapag-expand, ang mga pasyente naman po ay nag-iintay sa mga pasilyo. Minsan po, hindi na po naaabot ng tulong. Sila po ay inaabutan na ng pagkamatay. Kapag buhay ang nakataya, hindi pwedeng nakatali ang ating health system sa luma at matagal na proseso. Sa panukalang ito, binibigyan natin ng DOH ng kakayahang gumalaw ng mabilis, makatarungan at nakaayon sa pangangailangan ng panahon. Ito ang klase ng batas na nagliligtas, hindi nag-aantay. Ito po ay nakapaloob sa ating saligang batas na dapat po nating tinatayuan at pinaglalaban. Karapatan po ng ating mga kababayan ang health care. Muli, pinupuri ko po at pinasasalamatan ko po si Senator Risa Hontiveros at si Senator Erwin Tulfo at sa lahat po ng mga kasama ko dito, Senator Bongo, sa kanilang mga makataong advokasya. Buong dangal akong nakikisa at sumusuporta po sa panukalang ito. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, Majority Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We also have, well, he's not here. We'd like to also just submit for the record the sponsorship speech of Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo. For the record.
Sorry, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. And also Senator Jinggoy Estrada.
Take note of that. We'll insert
Thank you.
the records.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, to allow our colleagues to study the measure further, I move to suspend consideration of the measure.
Is there objection? There being none, consideration of Senate Bill number 15088 is hereby suspended.
Mr. President, I move to transfer from the calendar of ordinary business to special orders, Senate Bill number 1512 under Committee Report number 16. So move, Mr. President.
Is there objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
We will ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure.
An act creating an independent People's Commission to investigate anomalies in all government infrastructure projects, defining its powers and functions, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the very hardworking sponsor, no other than Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan, to sponsor the measure.
Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President, distinguished Majority Leader, to our distinguished colleagues. I rise today to sponsor and co-author Senate Bill number 1512, principally introduced by our Senate President Vicente Soto III, co-authored by Senators Erwin Tulfo and Risa Hontiveros. 6 na araw na nang bahain ang Cebu at maraming bayan sa ating bansa. Dumating at umalis na ulit ang isa pang bagyo, ang Uwan. 52 araw na ng malawakang protesta laban sa flood control scam noong September 21. Patuloy na nakaabang ang ating mga kababayan sa magiging kahihinatnan ng pinakamalaking corruption scandal sa kasaysayan ng ating republika. Hindi lang nilulunod ng puot ang taong bayan, literal na inanod din ang kanilang mga bahay at buhay. Inaanod na rin ang batayang tiwala ng karaniwang mamamayan sa pamalaang may sinumpang tungkulin na pangalagaan ang kanilang interes. Hindi lang hagupit ng kalikasan ang dahilan ng ilang daang pagkamatay at pagkawala sa iba't ibang sulok ng bansa. Hindi lang ito natural disaster, man-made disaster din ito. Malaking dahilan ng man-made disaster na ito ay ang massive systemic corruption. Systemic na parang cancer na kumakalat na sa lahat ng bahagi ng lipunan. Massive dahil sinlawak ng bahang dinulot nito ang korupsyon. Bagyong Uwan, halos buong Pilipinas ang kanyang naging saklaw. ganito rin itong flood control scandal. Sa maraming bahagi ng mundo, kita natin kung paanong nilalagay na sa sariling kamay ng mga Gen Z at karaniwang mamamayan ang pagpapanagot sa mga may tungkuling nasa katungkulan. Sa pagpapatupad ng katarungan, sa Nepal, sa Indonesia, sa Peru, literal na naghihimagsik ang mga kabataan at nilantad ang corruption na sumisira sa kanilang mga buhay. Ito ang konteksto ng ating panukalang batas na palakasin ang Independent Commission on Infrastructure na binuo ng Executive Order 94 sa pamamagitan ng itong committee report. Kailangan natin ng proseso na public, prompt, necessary, the minimum possible under the given circumstances, proportionate to the crimes and established by law. Ang pagiging maagap na parusa, hindi ang kalubhaan ang tanda ng hustisya. O sa panahon pa natin ngayon, kailangan smart and solution-specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, or relevant, at syempre, time-bound. Kaya naman minarapat ng inyong Senate Committee on Justice na itaguyod ang isang tunay na independent, technically capable, at empowered People's Commission para imbestigahan ang mga anomalya sa lahat ng government infrastructure projects. Unprecedented ang kurakot, unprecedented ang bunga ng krimen, kailangan unprecedented din ang pagpapanagot. Kaya binigyan ng panukalang batas na ito ng kapangyarihan ang Independent People's Commission para magsabpina, mag-usig, magsuspinde, mag-freeze ng assets at sundan ang pera saan man ito nandoon. Ika nga, follow the money. The proposed measure expands the powers of the ICI to include the powers of contempt, to cite individuals and entities for contempt, the power to cancel professional licenses of the PRC, the power to grant witness immunity and protection, the power to issue lookout orders and recommend HDO to proper authorities, the power to suspend and blacklist contractors and remove them from PhilJeps, the power to recommend to the President policy measures, the power to temporarily issue closure orders, the power to temporarily sequester assets, the power to deputize the NBI, the PNP, the CIDG, and other law enforcement agencies in the conduct of its investigation. Dulot na rin ng pangalang nito, magsisilbing People's Watchdog ang komisyon. Magkakaroon ito ng fiscal independence at tunay na proteksyon para sa mga kakantang whistleblowers, sa mga citizen monitors. Papaganahin nito ang karaniwang boses para sa tunay na pagpapanagot sa kurakot. Bagamat suklam na suklam tayo, kailangan pa rin ng due process. Ang katarungan ay hindi kasangkapan ng paghihigante. Kailangan public ang mga pandinig, patas at walang pinapanigan ang investigasyon at ang bunga ay nakabatay sa katotohanan at sa batas. Pasanin natin ito sa bawat Pilipinong umaakyat sa kanilang mga bubong, nagdadasal para sa kanilang kaligtasan. Pasanin natin sa bawat magulang na nawalan ng anak sa sakunang pwede namang maiwasan. Tungkulin natin ito sa lahat ng humihingi ng katarungan, ng pananagutan at ng pagbabago. Ang pagpasa sa panukalang batas na ito ay simula pa lamang. Dapat nating tandaan na ang mga batas at komisyon habang makapangyarihan sa papel ay humuhugot ng kanilang tunay na lakas mula sa isang nakatuon, mapagbantay na mamamayan. Ang pinakadakilang kaalyado ng hustisya ay ang mga taong ayaw tumanggap ng impunity, na patuloy na nagbabantay, nagtatanong at nagpapanagot sa mga tagapag-alaga ng kapangyarihan. Ipasa na natin ang panukalang batas na ito, hindi bilang isa pang hungkag na kilos, kundi bilang isang bagong tipan sa pagkakaisa ng ating tinig. Hindi natitinag ang ating pagtutol sa katiwalian at hindi natitinag ang ating pagbabantay. Itayo at itaguyod natin ang isang pamahalaan na tunay na mapagkakatiwalaan ng sambayanang Pilipino. For these reasons, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I wholeheartedly sponsor Senate Bill number 1215 under Committee Report number 16 and urge its immediate approval. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Senator Pangilinan, Majority Leader.
Next to sponsor the measure, Mr. President, no other than our Senate President, my dear presiding officer, no other than Senator Vicente C. Soto III.
Our Senate President, Vicente Soto III, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Majority Leader, thank you. At the outset, allow me first and foremost to thank Senator Francis Pangilinan, Chairman of the Committee on Justice, for acting with dispatch on this measure that is timely and necessary at this point. Mr. President, every devastating typhoon or monsoon that flooded our streets, severely damaged houses, destroyed livelihood, hampered our day-to-day activities, and claimed lives. We are reminded of the Filipino people's unwavering resiliency. Yes, all right. But this should no longer be the conversation. Resiliency should not be celebrated when accountability is deniably lacking. Filipino people surviving yet another flood should no longer be the topic of the next news article. Our people should not be losing sleep anymore when it is raining, fearing that anytime the flood will destroy their homes. Due to the geography of our country, we are very vulnerable to calamities. The billion-peso budget allocated to flood control projects should have given our people the security that no matter how hard the rain, they are safe. Much has been said about the recent flood control issue that shocked the nation. It is now the time we have taken action. By filing Senate Bill 1215, we now demand accountability for those who took advantage of the flood control and other infrastructure budgets for their personal gain at the expense of the suffering of the people. Ginoong Pangulo, maraming ang pamintas-mintas eh. May mga nagpipintas pa. Oh, yung Blue Ribbon, hearing na naman. Yung TRICOM ng House, hearing na naman. Yung ICI, wala namang power. Dami natin naririnig na gano'n eh. O eto, through this bill, we will be creating a balanced, effective, and most importantly, an independent investigative body tasked to look into this systematic corruption through which billions of pesos intended for infrastructure projects have been lost. Until every person involved is held accountable, until every peso has been recovered, until every Filipino is safe during calamities, we should not stop acting. Again, my thanks to the committee, Chairman, to you and my esteemed colleagues. Hopefully, the immediate passage of this measure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you to our Senate President. Majority Leader.
Ready na yung dalawang bills na Ma'am Risa? Nabasa na. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we have two last remaining sponsorships before we tackle the budget measure. May we transfer from the calendar, move to suspend consideration of the measure to allow our colleagues to study the measure further, Mr. President.
Mr. Objection. There being none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to special order, Senate Bill number 1510 under Committee Report number 14.
Mr. Objection. There being none, motion is approved.
May we ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure, Mr. President?
An act establishing a National Health Service Outreach Program for senior citizens and indigent persons with functional disabilities, providing for interagency and local government coordination and providing funds therefore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move that we consider the measure and recognize a distinguished Deputy Majority Floor Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros, to sponsor the measure.
Mr. Objection. There being none, our Deputy Majority Leader, Senator Ontiveros, is recognized.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. I rise to sponsor the Health Outreach for Seniors and Indigents Program, HOSIP, a national initiative to provide community-based care, assistive devices, and hygiene support for senior citizens and indigent persons with functional disabilities. Functional ability is key to healthy aging or active aging and healthy longevity. It means having the skills and opportunities to live a life you value, to meet needs, learn, move, connect, and contribute. Together with Senator Raffy Tulfo, we aim to identify and register seniors and indigent persons with sensory or mobility challenges, assess their needs through community profiling, and conduct regular visits every 2 months. The program will also provide free assistive devices such as wheelchairs, walkers, hearing aids, eyeglasses, and dentures, and distribute oral care and hygiene kits quarterly to eligible seniors and indigent persons. Through HOSIP, we reaffirm our commitment to care for those who once cared for us and still care for us, and to uplift the lives of the poor and the vulnerable. Let this measure be a step toward a more inclusive, compassionate, and health-equitable Philippines, where no senior or indigent person is left behind. Marami pong salamat, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ontiveros. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. To allow our colleagues to study the measure further, I move to suspend consideration of the measure.
If there's no objection, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to special orders, Senate Bill number 1511 under Committee Report number 15. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, motion is approved.
May we ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure?
There's no objection. The Secretary is requested to read the title of the measure.
An act strengthening the protection of patients against hospital detention on grounds of non-payment of hospital bills or medical expenses and providing stiffer penalties for violations thereof, amending for the purpose RA 9439 entitled An Act Prohibiting the Detention of Patients in Hospitals and Medical Clinics on grounds of non-payment of hospital bills or medical expenses.
May we recognize once again the very hardworking Deputy Majority Floor Leader and Chairperson of the Committee on Health, no other than Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Once again, our Deputy Majority Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros, is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. I rise today to sponsor a measure that seeks to end a silent cruelty that has for too long haunted the corridors of our hospitals. The unlawful detention of patients, and even the withholding of the bodies of the dead because of unpaid hospital bills. This is a practice that cuts across our society. It victimizes the poor, the elderly, solo parents, and even those who simply fell sick at the wrong time. Sa ganitong practice, pinaparusahan nito ang mga may sakit dahil sila'y mahirap. At nilalabag nito hindi lang ang ating saligang batas, kundi pati ang ating pagkatao bilang tao. No Filipino should ever have to beg to be released from a hospital bed. No grieving family should ever have to ransom the body of a loved one. Katuwang sina Senador Jinggoy Estrada at Erwin Tulfo, we propose to strengthen patient protection against hospital detention, to reaffirm what should have always been true, that healthcare is a right, not a privilege, and that compassion, not capacity to pay, must be the guidepost of our medical institutions. Mr. President, Republic Act No. 9439, the original law prohibiting hospital detention, was enacted almost 2 decades ago. Yet, despite its good intent, the practice persists. We still hear heartbreaking stories of mothers unable to bring home their newborns, of indigent patients detained for days, of families forced to surrender meager possessions just to claim their dead. This bill strengthens that law, giving it sharper teeth, broader reach, and stronger enforcement to ensure that no Filipino is ever again detained in sickness or in death for lack of capacity to pay hospital and medical bills. Una, pinalalawak ng panukalang ito ang saklaw ng proteksyon. Sakop na ngayon ang lahat ng ospital, klinika, at katulad na pasilidad, pampubliko man o pribado. Walang institusyong makakalusot sa pananagutan. At hindi lang mga pasyente ang protektado, kundi pati ang kanilang mga kamag-anak, kinatawan, tagapag-alaga, at maging ang mga bagong silang na sanggol. Wala nang dapat gawing palit-ulo para sa buhay, kalusugan at dignidad ng tao. Ikalawa, pinangangalagaan nito ang karapatang makauwi agad. Kapag ang pasyente ay gumaling na, lubos man o bahagya, dapat siyang payagang umuwi kaagad matapos pumirma ng promissory note o katumbas na kasunduan. Walang dapat ikulong dahil sa kakulangan ng pera at walang dokumentong medikal, discharge summary, reseta o medical certificate na dapat ipagkait dahil sa hindi nabayarang bill. Para sa mga mahihirap na senior citizen na inendorso ng Social Service Office, hindi na kailangang pumirma ni ng promissory note. Ikatlo, sinisiguro ng panukalang ito ang compassionate and humane treatment for the deceased. Inaatasan ng mga ospital na agad ibigay ang bangkay at mga kinakailangang dokumento, walang delay, walang singil, walang dagdag na pasakit sa pamilya. Para sa mga claims sa insurance o ari-arian, pwedeng gumamit ng kasunduang ligtas tulad ng deed of assignment. Pero kailanman, hindi dapat ipahiya o ipagdamot ang respeto sa mga naulila. Ikaapat, may mas mabigat na parusa sa mga lalabag. Ang sino mang opisyal o empleyado ng ospital na lalabag ay maaaring makulong ng hanggang 2 taon at 4 na buwan o multahan ng hanggang 300,000 pesos. Kung patakaran mismo ng ospital ang sanhi, ang mga direktor o manager ay maaaring makulong ng 4 hanggang 6 na taon at pagmultahin ng hanggang 1 milyong piso. At kung paulit-ulit ang paglabag, maaari nang bawiin ng Department of Health ang lisensya ng ospital. Ikalima, pinatitibay nito ang ugnayan ng health and social protection. Inaatasan ng DOH sa pakikipagtulungan sa DSWD, PhilHealth, SSS, GSIS at PCSO na tiyaking ang mga mahihirap at walang kakayahang magbayad ay ma-refer sa mga medical assistance program ng gobyerno. Ika-6, nagbibigay ito ng mekanismo ng reklamo at hustisya. Gagawa ng grievance system sa DOH para sa mga pasyente o pamilyang ikinulong ng labag sa batas. Kailangang ipaskil ng mga ospital ang mga karapatan ng pasyente sa malinaw na lugar, sumunod sa standard discharge protocols at tiyaking na iaabot ang tulong ng gobyerno sa mga nangangailangan. Mr. President, this measure is more than a set of legal amendments. It is a declaration that our hospitals should never be prisons, that compassion must never be conditional. It also sends a clear message. While we respect the financial realities of medical institutions, no economic consideration can justify the deprivation of liberty or dignity of a patient. This bill strengthens the partnership between government and healthcare providers. It encourages a system of shared responsibility in which hospitals fulfill their duty to care and government agencies provide the safety nets that make that duty sustainable. Through this measure, we are not only strengthening the law, we are reaffirming our humanity. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge respectfully the swift passage of this measure. Let us make sure our hospitals remain places of healing, not of detention, places of care, not of profit, places of compassion, never of cruelty. Marami pong salamat, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Tiberos, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, to allow our colleagues to study the measure further, I move to suspend consideration of the measure.
Is there objection? There being none, consideration of the said measure is hereby suspended.
The reference of I may ask for a minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session is suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
May we have, I move for this additional reference of business.
The Secretary will proceed with the third additional reference of business.
Third additional reference of business, committee reports. Committee report number 17, prepared and submitted jointly by the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance, Senate number 1513, with Senators Villar M., Villar C., and Villanueva as authors. An act instituting a national health program to combat systemic lupus erythematosus disease and appropriating funds therefore, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate numbers 260 and 1281, sponsored Senator Ontiveros.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 18, submitted by the Committee on Finance on House number 4058, introduced by Representative Swan Singh et al., titled An Act Appropriating Funds for the Operation of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2026, recommending its approval with amendments, sponsored Senators Gatchalian, Estrada, Villar M., Cayetano P., De La Rosa, Ejercito, Go, Legarda, Marcos, Pangilinan, Tulfo E., and Villar C.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, finally, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to special order House Bill number 4058 under Committee Report number 18. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of 4058 to transfer to the calendar for ordinary business is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we recognize our Secretary to read the title of the measure.
Yes, the Secretary will read the title of the measure without prejudice to inserting the contents thereof.
An act appropriating funds for the operation of the government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2026.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we recognize the sponsor of the measure, no other than our hard-working mathematician par excellence, no other than the chairman of the Committee on Finance, Senator Win Gatchalian.
Thank you.
Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, Chairman of the Committee on Finance,
Thank you.
is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Di po mathematician, pasang-awa lang po ako sa math, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, I rise today to sponsor House Bill number 4058, or the General Appropriations Act of 2026. The national budget is more than a purse. It is the single most important reflection of the nation's priorities. And these priorities must always embody the aspirations of our people. Dahil hindi lang pamumuno o maayos na pamamahala ang ipinagkatiwala sa atin ng ating mga kababayan, ipinagkatiwala nila sa atin ang kanilang pag-asa, ang pag-asang maramdaman nilang umangat ang kanilang buhay na may saysay ang bawat pisong ginagastos ng gobyerno para sa katuparan ng kanilang mga pangarap. At sa totoo lang, Mr. President, nagkulang tayo. Nagkulang tayo dahil sa talamak na korupsyon, sa flood control, at sa napakaraming sakunang sanay na iwasan at mga buhay na sanay na ligtas kung ginamit lang ng tama ang pera ng bayan. Typhoon Paolo ravaged the provinces of Isabela and Aurora. Capiz and Rojas City bore the brunt of Typhoon Ramil. And Typhoon Tino brought untold devastation to the people of Cebu. According to the Office of the Civil Defense, more than 200 people were killed. Just this weekend, Typhoon Uwan visited its wrath on the country. Homes and communities were devastated, and more than a million people fled their homes to seek safety. And as the recent protests have shown us, public outcry is loud and clear. People have lost faith in government. We are determined to restore what has been lost: leadership, accountability, and transparency. The first step towards rebuilding the trust of our people is showing them through specific and concrete actions that their hard-earned money will be used responsibly and that they know exactly where it is going. This representation is proud to say that we have introduced several significant firsts to create the golden age of transparency in the national budget. The first reform we made was sponsoring Senate Concurrent Resolution number 4, This mandated all critical budgetary documents from both the House of Representatives and the Senate to be uploaded online. We launched the Senate Budget Transparency Portal, where our people can watch live streams of the budget briefings and hearings, read the transcripts, peruse the agency presentations, and look at the National Expenditure Program and the House General Appropriations Bill, all in their entirety. There's even a section where citizens can provide feedback and upload their suggestions or position paper. This is the first time that the public will have access to the complete picture of the national budget, from the NEP, the GAB from the House of Representatives, the amendments to the GAB approved on third reading by the Senate, all of them in machine-readable format, and finally, to the live streaming of the bicameral conference committee. Actually, Mr. President, pagtapos ho nitong sponsorship po, i-upload na rin ho natin yung committee report. Kasama po yung mga annexes. So, ibig sabihin, kasama rin po dito yung mga different projects from the DPWH, from NIA, from Department of Agriculture at iba pa. First time ho gagawin natin na i-upload ho natin yung committee report together with the annexes in our Senate Transparency Portal. Another first in this budget was seeking the perspective of the civil society. Last October 28, we held a public hearing with various civil society groups to get suggestions on how transparency and accountability measures can be strengthened. They contributed valuable insights, particularly on digitalization. We hope that consultations with CSOs become a permanent part of the budget deliberations in the future, so that civic watchdog groups can have an active stake in the outcome of the nation's budget. We have also significantly reduced unprogrammed funds. During the budget hearings, one of our most painful discoveries was that unprogrammed funds that turned into a magnet of corruption. In 2023, the total amount for flood control projects that was sourced from unprogrammed funds stood at 25.25 billion. In 2024, the amount increased to 85.78 billion. For 2026, the House GAB allotted 243 billion pesos. The Senate version trims this down to 174.5 billion, a reduction of more than 68.5 billion. Of the 11 line items in unprogrammed funds, the Senate version reduced them to 7, with only 3 cash items. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, we examined this budget with a fine-tooth comb. This representation personally sat through every budget briefing in all the subcommittees. And after all the budget briefings were concluded, we organized an additional series of technical working group meetings, and we invited all the senators and their respective offices to these TWGs to get their thoughts and recommendations, because we wanted to ensure that no stone was left unturned. At the end of the day, this is a product of the collective effort of the Senate. And I'd like to thank all my fellow senators for their contributions throughout the budget process. Your experience, perspectives, and recommendations are at the heart of this budget. The total proposed national budget for 2026 stands at 6.7 trillion pesos. This is 7.4% higher than the last year's budget, or about 467 billion pesos more. This budget is aligned with the President's Philippine Development Plan and draws its economic pillars from forecasts provided by the Development Budget Coordination Committee. GDP growth rates are set at 6.6 to 7% for the next year, as adopted from the DBCC. We are aware that external economic headwinds such as the U.S. tariffs and the uncertainties in our domestic economic environment, as evidenced by the slower GDP growth rate of 4% in the last quarter, may cause some to change their outlook on the nation's economy. But these developments do not dampen our confidence. We will take these challenges as a call towards more disciplined spending. Let me share the highlights of this Budget Committee report. The first notable highlight is the proposed budget for education. The 2026 budget is an education budget. The total budget for the education sector stands at 1.38 trillion pesos. This is 20% of the national budget, or 4.5% of GDP. It is the highest in our country's history. More importantly, for the first time, the budget for education meets the United Nations mandated benchmark for allotting at least 4 to 6% of GDP to the sector. This allows us to meaningfully pursue the goal of ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Within the sector, the Department of Education has been given 992.7 billion pesos, marking the largest allocation in its history. The Commission on Higher Education was allotted 48.2 billion pesos, while the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority is set to receive 25.3 billion pesos. Funding for state universities and colleges stands at 140.3 billion pesos. DepEd's budget will increase by a substantial 78.5 billion pesos, or 8.6% compared to the amount approved under the House General Appropriations Bill. This increase underscores our collective commitment to strengthen programs that directly enhance the quality of learning for our learners. One of our most urgent priorities is addressing the nation's long-standing classroom backlog. As of July 2025, the current classroom backlog stands at 147,000 classrooms nationwide. According to the figures from the Department of Education, more than 5,000 classrooms were either damaged or destroyed by recent typhoons, by the recent storms. Your Committee on Finance allocated an additional 19.3 billion pesos on top of the 48.7 billion pesos in the House version, bringing the total funding for classroom construction to nearly 68 billion pesos. This represents a significant increase to the 15.25 billion originally allotted for classroom construction under the 2026 National Expenditure Program, underscoring our firm commitment to providing every learner with a safe and conducive space for learning. This increased funding empowers the DepEd to construct between 19,000 to 27,000 new classrooms. And this will bode well with the recent sponsorship of Senator Bamakino on the Classroom Acceleration Program. So perfect timing po dahil yung batas po ay magkakaroon na ng funding pag na-approve po yung CAP law ni Senator Bamakino. An additional 15.06 billion pesos has been provided for the school-based feeding program, increasing its allocation from 13.61 billion pesos in the House version to 28.66 billion pesos under the Senate Committee report. This will allow the program to operate throughout the entire 200 school days of the year, ensuring nutritional support for kindergarten and grade 1 learners while continuing to prioritize wasted and severely wasted learners from grades 2 to 6. Actually, napag-usapan rin namin ni Senator Bamto in one of his hearings about the school-based feeding programs to increase it from currently 120 days to now 200 days. So the entire school year na ho, mapapakain ng mga bata ho natin. All told, more than 4.8 million learners are expected to benefit from this initiative. Significantly increasing the budget for textbooks is critical to improving student access to information and strengthening learner outcomes. This budget provisions an additional 18.08 billion pesos to ensure that all learners from kindergarten to senior high school receive the textbooks necessary for effective and meaningful learning. Coupled with the increase from the House of more than 11 billion, this brings the total budget for textbooks to more than 29 billion pesos. This will fund production of 82 textbook titles that will help almost 20 million learners in DepEd schools. Furthermore, 3.3 billion pesos has been added on top of the existing allocations for the ARAL program. This will ensure that tutors are adequately trained and fairly compensated, enabling them to better assist learners in addressing learning gaps. With the help of more than 440,000 tutors, an estimated of 6.7 million learners will be given tutorial sessions in reading and math. As we strengthen the access to textbooks and address the classroom backlog, let us also not forget to solidify early childhood education at the community level. To this end, we are allocating 2.46 billion pesos from the Local Government Support Fund to help 4th and 5th class municipalities convert existing daycare centers into child development centers. We also aim to create 4,422 plantilla positions for child development workers with a salary starting at salary grade 8. The budget of the Commission on Higher Education will rise by 11% compared to the House-approved version, a testament to the Senate commitment to universal access to quality tertiary education. This augmentation assures an additional 6.6 billion pesos for the tertiary education subsidy, ensuring that 490,000 incoming college students from 4-piece household can pursue their studies. This affirms our vision for the 4-piece program, that every family beneficiary should have at least one college graduate who can lift the household out of poverty through education. Under this augmentation, each beneficiary will receive 20,000 pesos per year if they are enrolled in a public higher education institution and 27 pesos per year if they attend a private HEI in areas without public university and colleges. It also corrects inequities in the past when students from low-income households were crowded out in the selection of TES beneficiaries. The budget of Technical Education and Skills Development Authority stands at a historic high, a reflection of our firm belief that TechVoc is not second class. It is a first-class ticket to gainful and dignified employment. We have provided an additional 5.1 billion pesos under the Training for Work Scholarship Program to train around 190,000 Filipinos in high-demand sectors such as healthcare, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and creative industries. These priority industries were identified by the Private Sector Advisory Council's Education and Job Sector Group and Health Sector Group, as well as the Semiconductors and Electronics Industry Advisory Council to the TESDA. They were identified as priority sectors because these high-growth industries will require highly technical skills for the jobs they are creating, ensuring that our workforce is ready to meet the demands of a rapidly evolving economy. Through these investments in the potential of the Filipino, we are not only building a stronger, more competitive workforce, we are also empowering our nation with the skills and opportunities to shape the industries of the future and secure for themselves and their families a life of dignity and progress. The funding for SUCs will be higher than the House-approved budget by about 6.8 billion pesos as the Senate prioritized infrastructure projects that expand the carrying capacity of our state universities and colleges in support of universal access. This augmentation directly responds to our research findings presented during the budget briefing, which revealed that around 168,000 qualified college applicants were unable to enroll due to limited enrollment capacity. We also allocated 290 million pesos as seed funding for new medical schools in our state universities and colleges, an investment that will help ensure a steady pipeline of doctors ready to serve the health needs of the Filipino people. If education is often hailed as the key to our future, health is the foundation that allows us to reach it. With the key support of health advocates such as Vice Chairperson Senator Pia Cayetano, the Department of Health, including PhilHealth, has been allotted 376.5 billion pesos. Particular attention will be given to the implementation of the Universal Health Care Law and the Zero Balance Billing Program of the current administration. These initiatives aim to ensure that every Filipino can access quality health care without the burden of financial hardship when seeking medical treatment. The Senate increased the operating funds of DOH hospitals by 9.3 billion pesos. This is to expand the coverage of the government's zero balance billing program. Under the NEP, the budget for zero balance billing stood at 53.3 billion. This could accommodate an estimated 16 million Filipinos. With the increase proposed by the Senate committee report, the total budget for zero balance billing now stands at 62.6 billion pesos. With this augmentation, an estimated 18 million Filipinos can receive hospital care at no cost, an increase of 2 million beneficiaries. We also bolstered the funding for zero balance billing in specialty hospitals. The Lung Center of the Philippines, the Philippine Heart Center, the National Kidney and Transplant Institute, the Philippine Children's Medical Center will receive an additional 1 billion pesos each. This is also thanks to the recommendation of Vice Chairperson Senator Pia Cayetano. These efforts represent our commitment to a rights-based approach to health. And because we recognize health as one of the most fundamental human rights, we are strengthening rules-based systems to ensure that those who need help the most always have access to it. But health and education need a third pillar to secure the well-being of our people, particularly those who live in the farthest margins of society. Marami sa ating mahihirap ang umaasa pa rin sa mga social services ng pamahalaan. This is why the Department of Social Welfare and Development was allocated 230 billion pesos to support a wide range of targeted social welfare interventions. We increased the social protection for indigent senior citizens by 8.2 billion pesos to cover approximately 663,000 waitlisted beneficiaries, an initiative endorsed by Senator Pia Cayetano. We also increased funding for the supplementary feeding program for children below 5 years old to expand the number of feeding days from 120 to 180 days, benefiting more than 1.8 million children below 5 years old in our child development centers. In addition, we pushed for the establishment of 5 regional Bahay Pag-asa facilities to provide proper care and rehabilitation for the children in conflict with the law. Each Bahay Pag-asa carries a capacity of 50 beds, a total of 200 beds nationwide. Based on average case durations, these facilities can serve 125 and 500 children in conflict with the law every year. And this is also an advocacy of Senator Kiko Pangilinan to expand our capacity in the Bahay Pag-asa facilities nationwide. To ensure our budgetary decisions are guided by data, we have rationalized the budget for the Pantawid Pamilya program. A total of 101.8 billion pesos will be allocated for 4 Ps, enough to sustain the cash grants of around 3 million existing household beneficiaries and to extend coverage to about 500,000 new near-poor households identified through the community-based monitoring system. This funding level also addresses the 6.5 billion pesos shortfall for the December 2025 4Ps payout, ensuring that no family misses a single month of support. This rationalization is not just about numbers. It is about reaffirming our commitment to make 4Ps more targeted, data-driven, and sustainable, so that every peso we spend truly uplifts families who need it the most. We have not forgotten our 2.3 million overseas Filipino workers. Sila ang ating mga makabagong bayani. Ang mga sakripisyo nila ang bumubuhay sa kanilang mga pamilya at nagpapaandar ng ating ekonomiya. Bilang pagkilala sa kanilang kontribusyon, na doble po ng Senado dahil sa matatag na suporta ni Vice Chairman Senator Erwin Tulfo ang pondo ng Action Fund ng Department of Migrant Workers. Ito ay mula sa 1.2 billion na bersyon ng Kamara naging 2.4 billion pesos. Sa dagdag pondong ito, mas mapapalawak natin ang tulong para sa ating mga OFWs, kabilang ang pinansyal at medical na assistance, repatriation para sa mga nasa panganib at legal na suporta para sa mga may kinahaharap na kaso o suliranin sa ibang bansa. Ito ay patunay na ang ating bansa ay maninindigan para sa mga OFWs. Ang inyong pagsisikap ay hindi mauuwi sa kapabayaan kundi tutumbasan ng proteksyon at tunay na malasakit. As we tend to the health and well-being of our communities and families, we should also look after the welfare of our industries, because the first level of empowerment is economic empowerment, and transforming our production sectors to create competitive work for our people is equally vital. To sustain growth and create jobs, let us invest in production and innovation. The Department of Agriculture, including its attached agencies and corporation, has been allotted 184 billion pesos. We have allocated 500 million pesos for the implementation of the Sagip-Saka Act, championed by Senator Kiko Pangilinan, to link our farmers and fisher folks directly to institutional buyers. The additional 500 million pesos will fund the establishment of food hubs where farmer producers can trade directly with retailers and consumers, minimizing intermediation and allowing farmers to capture greater profits from their production. This augmentation will raise the total funding for the establishment of food hubs to 2.6 billion pesos, benefiting around 2.6 million farmers in Region 3, 4A, 5, and Region 10. We also have provided 2 billion pesos for the construction of first border inspection facilities, a crucial investment to prevent the entry of plant and animal diseases that threaten our agriculture supply. By strengthening these safeguards, we can avert crises like the African swine fever outbreak, which the Department of Agriculture estimated to have cost around 120 billion pesos in losses to our hog industry. It also supports the revitalization of high-value crops such as coffee and cacao, with an additional 440 million pesos allocated for the High-Value Crops Development Program. In addition, 25 million pesos have been earmarked for the Young Farmers Challenge, an initiative championed by Vice Chairperson Senator Amy Marcos, which seeks to grant 600 awardees competitive grant assistance and training and mentoring in agriculture. And 41.1 million pesos has been allocated for the Mentoring and Attracting Young in Agribusiness initiative, all designed to inspire a new generation of Filipinos to see agriculture not as a livelihood of last resort, but as a field of innovation, enterprise, and pride. Through these strategic investments in the agriculture, we strengthen the foundation of food security and affirm the prosperity of our farmers in the prosperity of our nation. The Department of Trade and Industry will carry a budget of 9.7 billion. Thanks to the recommendation of Vice Chairperson Senator Amy Marcos, this will be used, among other things, to bolster our Fair Trade and Consumer Protection Program and the Pangkabuhayan sa Pagbangon at Gawa Program, which seeks to help microenterprises that fall victim to disasters. The Department of Science and Technology, with the support of Vice Chairperson Senator Camille Villar, will be granted a budget of 31.48 billion pesos. The proposed 2026 budget increases the amount allocated for Philippine Science High School scholarships, adding 413 million to the amount in the NEP. This marks the first increase to the scholarship package of the Philippine Science High School in 10 years. More than 10,000 learners will benefit from this increase. Our people experience the failures of governance not through missed KPIs or spreadsheets, but in hours they lose stuck in traffic, the toll that takes on their health, and the persistent disappointment that comes with knowing that infrastructure, the part of government that is meant to connect communities together, has been used as well for corruption that widens inequality. For 2026, the proposed budget for the Department of Public Works and Highways will be set at 568.56 billion pesos. We reduced the budget of the department by 55.91 billion. During the hearings, we discovered several red flags, such as roads with no station IDs, duplicate projects, projects in multiple phases, and reappearing projects from previous year's budget. The President recently ordered the DPWH to lower material costs for infrastructure projects. And the goal of reduction is not only to help comply with that directive, but also to ensure efficiency and more responsible spending. As an additional safeguard against corruption, all DPWH projects have station ID numbers, bridge IDs, and school IDs included in the committee report. And one of the concepts that I learned from Senator Ping Lacson is the lack of detail in the different projects. Dahil wala pong station ID, hindi ho natin mahanap kung nasaan po yung project, hindi ho natin malocate kung nasaan po yung tinatayong kalsada, hindi rin natin alam po kung gaano kahaba. So ngayon po, dito ho sa 2026 committee report, lahat po ng mga kalsada, bridges, meron na pong station ID. Kaya malalaman na po yung mga gusto hong tingnan po itong budget, lalo na mga engineers, ma-identify na ho nila saan at gaano kahaba. We cannot talk about improving infrastructure without improving the country's transport system. For this year, the Department of Transportation will receive a budget of 189.298 billion. And thanks to the vigilance of Vice Chairman Senator J. Veracito, several key airport projects in Bicol, Daet, Camiguin, Siargao, and Catbalogan will be funded. Funding for the Bicol International Airport project is proposed at 1 billion. The Daet, Camiguin, and Catbalogan Airport each will receive funding at 250 million, and Siargao Airport will receive proposed funding of 100 million. Furthermore, this budget will support the acquisition of more than 400 floating assets for the Philippine Coast Guard in the amount of 4.9 billion pesos. Technologies such as monitoring systems to improve maritime safety will go a long way to enhancing the Coast Guard's capabilities. This was also upon the recommendation of Vice Chairperson Senator J.V. Arcito. The fast-paced nature of change in the modern world demands that we meet challenges to our safety from a position of strength. Dahil hindi lang nakasalalay sa mga tulay, daan at gusali ang pag-unlad, mahalaga rin ang katahimikan at seguridad ng ating mga komunidad. Because safe communities create the needed conditions for our people and economy to flourish. For fiscal year 2026, the proposed budget for the defense sectors amounts to 385.97 billion pesos. This represents 1.25% of the project's projected nominal GDP for 2026. This allocation is the highest defense spending of the country relative to its economic size and will surely strengthen our capabilities, address our defense-related needs. Together with this is the modernization of the AFP. Thanks to the guidance of Vice Chairman Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, the Senate allocated 90 billion pesos to this endeavor. As we strengthen the foundations of our economy and ensure the future of our youth, we should also adapt to ever-changing geopolitical conditions. The continuing modernization of our armed forces is an investment in the nation's security and our contribution to the safety of the ASEAN region. Under the recommendation of Vice Chairperson Senator J.V. Arcito, we have transferred a total of 23.7 billion pesos from the MPBF to increase the subsistence allowance of more than 333,000 uniformed personnel in the Philippine National Police, the Philippine Coast Guard, the Bureau of Jail Management Penology, the Bureau of Fire Protection, and the Philippine Public Safety College, the Bureau of Corrections, and the National Mapping and Resource Information Authority. This funding will raise their daily subsistence allowance from 150 pesos to 350 pesos, bringing it at par with their counterparts in the armed forces of the Philippines. We also honor the sacrifices of the military veterans who came before. Also, through the initiative of Vice Chairman Senator Bato de la Rosa, the Senate has given support to the construction of two-story hospice dormitory at the Veterans Memorial Center. The facility will have 50 hospice patients rooms and 50 dormitory rooms, increasing bed capacity by 250. Through these efforts, we affirm a simple but profound principle that government takes care of those who take care of the Filipino people. Our duties as leaders do not end with tending to the economy, securing our borders, or protecting our communities from crime and terrorism. We have a larger responsibility to prepare our nation and protect our people from the threats caused by climate change and the degradation of our environment. This is why this proposed budget also invests in environmental protection and climate resistance. Through the recommendation of Vice Chairperson Senator Legarda, the Climate Change Commission is set to receive an additional 55 million pesos specifically for the establishment of a roving climate change academy in coordination with SUCs, DepEd, schools, and local government units. Your Committee on Finance would also like to thank the following senators for upholding specific sectors of our society that are important to our heritage, culture, and our identity as Filipinos. Thank you to Vice Chairman Senator Jingo Estrada for advancing our film industry through the continued support of the Cinemalaya, the Film Development Council of the Philippines, and the Movie and Television Review and Classification Board. To Vice Chairperson Senator Lauren Legarda for always championing our cultural heritage and ensuring that it has meaningful spaces to flourish. To Senator Mark Villar for securing funding to restore the Manila Central Post Office building, which fell victim to fire in May of 2023. It is one of our most important and iconic historical treasures. I would also like to acknowledge Senator Bongo for standing shoulder to shoulder with our athletes and the Philippine Sports Commission. Senator Go's recommendation will increase financial assistance to athletes and the construction of high-performance training facilities. Thanks to these efforts, we can support generations of future athletes that may one day take their place on the world stage. Last but certainly not the least, let me take this opportunity to thank my staff and the team from the LBRMO who sat with me through all the briefings, hearings, and analyzed the budget down to the last detail to come up with policies that are fiscally responsible, socially responsive, and humane. We would not be here today without your effort. Mr. President, esteemed college, we cannot change the past. We cannot change the past, but we can shape and reclaim our future with clarity, conviction, and determination. The General Appropriations Act of 2026 stands as both the instrument of our national development and a pledge towards the restoration of government's credibility in the eyes of its people. May it remind us that progress without integrity is hollow, and integrity without progress is unfulfilled promise. Genuine principled governance demands no less. When we are entrusted with public office, we all swore to serve the Constitution, this Republic, and its people. Let us work together as one government and prove that oath true. Thank you, Mr. President, esteemed colleagues.
Thank you, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, for that very elaborate and incisive sponsorship of the GAB of the Senate. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, we can see how hardworking the good gentleman is from Valenzuela. He poured his heart and soul out on this measure. Mr. President, we are not wrong in electing him as the chairman of the Finance Committee. He's the most studious member of this Congress, Mr. President. Nagko-complain na po yung mga staff niya. At yung staff niya nagtatanong sa akin kung pwede ko daw siyang hanapan ng date.
Yun.
Kasi hindi na daw umuwi, Mr. President.
Yes.
Natatawa po yung mga staff ni Senator Sherwin. Co-sponsors? No more. Insert? Okay. Yes, several members of the committee will just insert to the records the co-sponsorship speeches. One of them is Senator Kiko Pangilinan and Senator Pia Cayetano, Mr. President, for the record.
We will place that on record and so inserted.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, to allow our colleagues to study the measure further, move to suspend consideration of the measure, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just other administrative matters. Tomorrow we start our discussions on the budget, Mr. President. So we are going to suspend sessions today and resume tomorrow at 1 p.m. For the discussions on the general provisions of the budget interpellation to be answered, of course, by our distinguished sponsor, Senator Gatchalian. We just like to let everyone know, before we do that, Mr. President, we have an all-member caucus. Please inform our chief of staffs of all the senators at 12 noon here po sa ating Senators Lounge. We'll have lunch there. And then some more admin matters, Mr. President.
It's an all-senator caucus.
It's an all-senator caucus.
Please
All members.
inform all the members of the
Yes.
Senate.
Thank you. Also, Mr. President, Senator Camille Villar gave birth last month and has since been unable to attend session. Mr. President, we noticed that previously approved journals have reflected her attendance in the past sessions as absent. I propose that the Secretariat be directed to henceforth reflect Senator Villar is on maternity leave. I mean, she's absent, but she's on maternity leave. We have to have an excuse why she's absent. And we allow that, Mr.
Yes,
President. As a matter of fact, in corporations, we allow 120 days. I think 110 days? 105 days. 105
Well, I'm sure
days.
there will be no objections, so we place that on record.
Thank you very much.
But that's
Mr.
the first
President.
time since 1917, there has been no senators who have given birth while in.
Senator Ligarda,
Well
sir.
said.
Nanganak ba yan nung senator na siya? Did you give birth while you were a senator? Were you a senator when you gave birth to your kid?
No, I don't think so.
No? Hindi daw.
She was past her prime.
When she won as a senator, Your Honor. She had given birth already. So, also, Mr. President.
Who?
Sino?
Sino?
Senator Madrigal, not Jambi po, yung aunt daw. I'm not sure.
We will look into that. I'm not sure.
That was beyond my time, Mr. President. I wouldn't remember. We'll find out on the record,
All right.
on our records. Mr. President, this is on EDCOM 2 Commission. Pursuant to Section 5 Republic Act number 11899, I move the Senate President designate members to the Second Congressional Commission on Education. I so move, Mr. President.
All right. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the following are designated as members of the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM 2. Chairpersons, Senator Bam Aquino as chairperson of the Committee on Basic Education, and Senator Loren Legarda with previously designated members Senator Joel Villanueva and Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. So designated.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, pursuant also to Rule 10, Section 18, the rules of the Senate, upon the instruction of the chairperson of the Committee on Justice and Human Rights, I manifest the creation of a subcommittee to take up the privileged speech of Senator Rizal Teveros on Mr. Joseph C., delivered last October 1, with Senator Hontiveros as chairperson. So manifested, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the manifestation is noted.
And that's with the approval of the chairperson, Senator Pangilinan. Senator Legarda also, Mr. President, wishes to co-sponsor the following measures and requests that her co-sponsorship speeches be inserted into the record. Senate Bill number 1508, Senate Bill number 1509, Senate Bill number 1512, and Senate Bill number 1511, and Senate Bill number 1510. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, so inserted and so recorded.
And Senator Pia Cayetano would also like to insert into the record her co-sponsorship speeches for the following: Senate Bill number 1507, Senate Bill number 1508, and Senate Bill number 1512. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, so inserted and recorded.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we suspend session until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Thursday, November 13, 2025. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, session is suspended until 1 o'clock in the afternoon of Thursday, November 13, 2025.